So guys, it's that time of the week again, back for our score predictions. Loads of football coming up this weekend. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, it's a bit of a weird one today because we've got just the 4 championship matches going on, and then we've got all of the FA Cup 4th round action as well. So a lot of score predictions to be making today. As always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. And before we do get into anything, I must give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. So if you're not already, I'd highly recommend checking it out in the link down below, especially on the FA Cup weekend when we got so many different things going on in different competitions. If you want to get live updates to your phone whenever a goal goes in, OneFootball is the place to stay on top of everything. You can also get the latest on transfer rumours which are flying around the footballing world, and read up on some more detailed stats from players at your club as well, so I'll leave a link down below. So we've got a bit of a split in today's video. The first part of it, we're going to be predicting the championship games, and then the second part of it, we're going to be predicting the FA Cup games. Now, I must stress, only the championship score predictions will count towards the prediction league. So those 4 championship games that are going on this weekend are the most important in terms of the prediction league standings. And speaking of your guys' score predictions, as you can see to the side of me, this is how the main prediction league is now looking. We got a new leader at the top. It's a Derby fan. What a midweek you guys had, beating Bournemouth. Jack Bullymore drops down to 2nd in the table. For the League 1 prediction league, it's Tom Haggarth who's currently leading the way. He's on 18 points. Decent midweek in here for quite a lot of you guys. And then the League 2 prediction league is looking like this. Honey Gunn sat top of it currently with 16 points. And if you look all the way down in 16th place, I'm currently sat there in League 2 at the moment. So I've got a bit of work to be doing to crawl my way back up the prediction leagues, but that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It brings back this competitiveness. So if you want to get involved, all you need to do is get your championship score predictions down below. But without any further ado, guys, let's jump into this one. So let's start out with tonight's game. That sees Stoke going up against Watford. Stoke were involved in an absolute thriller of a match in midweek, weren't they? A 3-3 draw against Rotherham. I'm not sure many people saw that one coming, but moving forward, Nick Powell very much seems to be their in-form man at the moment. A lot of good things are coming through him at the moment, but defensively, a bit slack from Stoke recently. They seem to struggle with second balls coming into the box, and although I've not been Troy Deeney's biggest fan so far this season, I can't help but feel like in a game like this, where Stoke are showing a bit of vulnerability, someone like a Troy Deeney could thrive. Obviously, Troy Deeney was on the score sheet in midweek, smashing home that trademark penalty against Barnsley. Good win for Watford. Can't help but feel like they probably should have had a couple more goals in that game, to be honest. You know, Andre Gray missed an absolute sitter of a chance, but even so, 3 points on the board. What they now need to turn their attention to is improving their away form. 11 games into this championship season, only 11 points they picked up on the road. For this game, I remember there was a little bit of controversy in the reverse fixture with Angus Gunn sort of being bundled over the goal line when he had the ball in his hands. I'm going to go for a draw. I think that Stoke are drawing a lot of games at the moment, and Watford still yet to really prove their worth away from home. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. FIFA's going to go 1-0 Watford. Next up, we go to Saturday's only championship game we got going on. That's QPR up against Derby. Now, Derby County are quite possibly the most confusing club in all of the championship, because their record against the top 6 so far this season has been absolutely remarkable. That win in midweek against Bournemouth came out of absolutely nowhere. After back-to-back defeats against Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday, they're able to pull that one out the bag. Christian Bielik with the goal, undoubtedly since he's come back into the side, has been their player to watch, and yeah, what a big moment that could be for Derby moving forward this season. QPR also winning in midweek. They had the final nail in the Neil Harris coffin at Cardiff, beating them by 1-0. Goals at home for QPR had been a little bit harder to come by recently, though. They've failed to score now in their last 3 matches. If Derby win this one, they'll just be a couple points behind QPR. Derby, listen, they're just confusing, aren't they, at the moment? Their record against the sides below them and around them is what's really let them down so far this season, so this seems to be quite a test of character to see if they can build off the back of that Bournemouth result. I'm fancying another draw for this one. I think it's going to be another fairly low scoring one. A 0-0 wouldn't surprise me, but I'll go for a 1-1. FIFA's saying it'll be 2-0 QPR. Next up, let's go to Sunday's early kickoff. That sees Preston going up against Reading. Both sides winning in midweek. Preston 1-0 against Birmingham. A bit of a scrappy game, to be honest with you, but that real moment of quality finally came for North End in the second half. Lovely goal scored on the counter-attack. Ben White Whiteman with the forward pass, Scott Sinclair with a nice little flick, Malumbi with a fantastic run, and then Sinclair finished things off. But talking about high quality goals, Reading in midweek, I mean, their forward four, we sort of briefly mentioned this while John Swift was sort of getting himself back up to speed. Lucas Jow, and then the three behind him are Vijaria, Elise and John Swift. Wow, they're going to score goals for the second half of the season, aren't they? That free kick was absolutely outrageous, and earlier on in the season up against Reading, it probably was, to be honest with you, one of our best performances so far. And I can't help but feel like in that game Reading sort of played into our hands a little bit, playing quite a high line. Emil Reich was absolutely fantastic, racing in behind, and obviously, like I say, we put the 3 goals past them. But I've got a bit of a bad feeling about this game. I think that Reading may get their revenge on our earlier fixture in the season. They did have chances in that game earlier on as well, and I think they will for this one. They've been the most clinical side in the Championship so far this season, and that may tell for this one. Reluctantly, I'm going to say 2-1 Reading in this game, and I hope that I'm proven wrong, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 1-1 draw. We're just so inconsistent at the moment, it's a tough one to call. And then there's our last Championship game to predict over the weekend. We're heading to the Riverside as Middlesbrough go up against Blackburn. Now, the away side doesn't find themselves on a particularly good run of form at the moment. Obviously, their game in midweek was called off due to a waterlogged pitch. They only won 1 of their last 6 matches now in all competitions. They go up against this Spurs side who did get the result in midweek, 2-1 against Forest, and one of the real plaudits that you give to this Spurs side, and we have mentioned it a few times on the channel so far, is they've really got a good bounce back ability about themselves. They've only lost back-to-back games once so far this season, which is a really impressive and quite the positive characteristic to have about your side. They don't tend to get themselves into a rut and go on a bad run of form. They very much seem to snap out of it quite quickly. Johnny Howson, I've heard absolute rave reviews from his performance in midweek against Nottingham Forest. Seemingly he was popping up absolutely everywhere and was the absolute anchor of that Middlesbrough midfield. So far this season, Blackburn have struggled in a couple of these tighter matches as well. The reverse fixture earlier on this season finished as a goalless draw, but I think Borough might just scrape this one. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side, whereas FIFA's going 1-0 Blackburn. But those were all the Championship games that we got going on over the weekend. Like I say, just 4 of them going on this weekend. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into the FA Cup action. So let's start out with Barnsley going up against Norwich. Obviously, the reverse fixture that we had in the league not too long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, Norwich did win this one by 1-0. Emi Buendia with an absolutely fantastically timed volley was enough to get all 3 points. But obviously, the FA Cup can throw up a couple of shocks. I imagine there'll be changes made for each team. And actually, since Norwich's last game in the FA Cup, it's been nice to see Jordan Hugo getting a bit of a run out in the side. Obviously, bagged a brace for himself in midweek, and that's going to do his confidence the world of good. You know, in the absence of Timu Pukki, they do have someone, especially at Championship level, who's more than capable of filling that role. Obviously, very different strikers with their strengths and weaknesses, but yeah, nice to see him getting a good run of games in the side at the moment. For Barnsley, tough fixtures there in the middle of at the moment. They've not scored now in their last 3 matches, but something that we have highlighted with them so far this season is their quality up against those sides who are currently sat in the top 6. Just seems to be maybe one step too far for them at this point in time. Obviously, quite a closely contested game in midweek for them. The penalty was the deciding factor in the one they had against Watford. But for this game, I think it's probably Norwich that I am going to be back, and I'm going to go 2-1 to the away side. With FIFA saying it'll be 2-0 Norwich. Next up, we'll then go to the Den as Millwall go up against Bristol City. Now, Millwall, big win for them in midweek, 1-0 against Huddersfield. Their last couple of midweek performances have actually been pretty decent. That one and against Bournemouth previously. But if we look at the big picture of how they've been playing over the last 16 or so games, it is still a bit of a downward trajectory. Only 2 wins in their last 16 now. However, one of those wins was against Bristol City, who they line up against this weekend. 2-0 at Ashton Gate, this time at the Den. And we can't ignore their record at the Den so far this season has still been shoddy at best, and Bristol City will of course look to capitalise on that. Bristol City's game midweek was a loss against Norwich, and listen, there's no shame in that. Probably the manner of the defeat will be what's annoyed Bristol City fans the most, though I don't think they had any shots on target for it. They didn't seem to have any belief from minute 1 that they could go out and win that game. So for this game especially, you'd be thinking that Bristol City are going to look to play a lot more aggressive, a lot more on the front foot, similar to how they did last weekend against Preston. And for a score prediction, it's 2 very inconsistent teams. I think I'm just edging Bristol City in this one. I'm going to go 1-0 to Bristol City, and FIFA is going to agree with me. Really, that one's flip of a coin, could go either way. Next we'll go to the Liberty as we got Swansea going up against Forest. The reverse fixture earlier on in the season at the City Ground in the Championship. 1 goal was enough to separate these 2 sides, and I think I could see a similar game unfolding in this one. It was a Connor Roberts header which was enough to give Swansea all 3 points in that game. Forest, coming off the back of that loss in midweek, puts an end to that really impressive unbeaten run that they previously gone on. And I don't think that all the work and progress that they made under Chris Hughton should be forgotten about because of one shoddy performance. And it was that, wasn't it? A shoddy performance when they never really seemed to get going. Obviously a red card late in that game as well. Now Swansea, with them not being in action in midweek, wouldn't be all too surprised to see them put out a fairly strengthy lineup for this one. I wouldn't be too surprised also to see kind of Horahan get his first game for Swansea as well. Very excited to see how he adapts to Championship life once again and really kicks them on for the second half of the season. I think that's an absolute gem of a loan signing for the rest of the season. And for a score prediction, I think I'm just edging Swansea again. I'm going to go 1-0 to the home side, and FIFA's going to agree with me. Next up then to Stamford Bridge, we got Chelsea going up against Luton. Really big tie for Luton here, who actually put in a decent performance in midweek and probably got quite unlucky to lose that game against Brentford. Brentford by no means at their best, and for the second half especially, Luton really had the limelight of the chances. On another day, would have easily got a point from that game. It all ended a bit dramatically with the 2 red cards to Tom Lockyer and to Ivan Toney, but disregarding all of that, pretty decent performance from Luton there, all things considered. Now, Chelsea previously this season have faced Championship opposition at Stamford Bridge, and they did put 6 goals past Barnsley. Obviously Havertz isn't particularly having the season to remember at the moment, but cup competitions seem to be his thing at this point in time. Obviously scored a hat-trick against Barnsley earlier on in this season. I think that with Frank Lampard, especially with the current situation that Chelsea are in the Premier League, and with him coming under increasing scrutiny, he needs a performance and a result just to keep that at bay for even the next few days or weeks. So for a score prediction, I think that Chelsea probably do get through this one. I'm going to go 3-1 Chelsea. FIFA's going to say it'll be 2-1 Chelsea. Next up then, speaking of Brentford, we got Brentford going up against Leicester. Now this one has potential to be an absolute cracker of a football match. Brentford, by no means were they at their sparkling best in midweek, and I would imagine that they make a couple of changes coming into this game, but Brentford and Leicester, probably 2 of the most entertaining sides we've got in English football. One playing in the Championship, one playing in the Premier League. It's a nice matchup. These 2 sides did actually meet in the FA Cup 4th round last year. It was Leicester who progressed to the next round. An early Iheanacho goal was enough to seal the victory, and it was 2 pretty unrecognisable teams in that game. Both of them had made about 11 changes, and there is the danger that that could happen in this game, and the game all becomes a little bit bogged down. It feels like a bit of a reserve match, but I hope that's not the case, because this one, like I say, does have potential to be a bit of a cracker. For a score prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 in normal time, and then Leicester to pip it 2-1 in extra time, with FIFA saying it'll be 2-0 Leicester. Next up then to Goodison Park, we've got Everton going up against Sheff Wednesday. Now it does feel like absolutely ages since we last got to see Sheff Wednesday play. The last game of football they had was actually the FA Cup 3rd round, and it is worth reminding people that they're on a decent run of form at the moment. So they're unbeaten now in their last 5 matches. They've won 4 of those games, but obviously they've got a bit of catching up to do in the league with some games in hand. Everton also not played all too much football. Their last game was on the 12th. That was a win against Wolves. And it is also worth remembering that they did come a little bit unstuck in the FA Cup 3rd round. It did take them up until extra time to get past that quite resilient Rotherham side. I wouldn't be all too surprised to see Sheff Wednesday lining up in a similar manner. Interested to see if Andre Green gets his debut. I'm quite excited to see if he's able to really kick on in a Sheff Wednesday shirt. But for a score prediction, Wednesday probably have their eyes on bigger things this season. It's all about survival for them. So I will go quite safe with this one. I'm going to go 2-0 Everton, with FIFA saying quite the upset, 2-1 Wednesday. And coming up next, we then got Wycombe going up against Spurs. Gareth Ainsworth versus Jose Mourinho. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching this one. 2 of the highest scoring teams from the FA Cup 3rd round. Wycombe put 4 goals past Preston, and Spurs obviously put 5 past Marine. Can I see this game being as high scoring? Honestly, I'm not too sure. I think this one's going to be a little bit more reserved. I think that, to be fair to Wycombe, with the sort of football they play, they are geared up to be that sort of team that can produce a real FA Cup upset. Spurs, you'd obviously imagine, will have the majority of the possession and look to really probe in and around the Wycombe box, but with the way they set up in the Championship, they're used to defending quite deep into their own half, and obviously they have that quality from set pieces and counter-attacks and things like that, which does make this one an interesting game. You know, Spurs can't afford to take this one lightly, and they're going to need to be as professional as they were in the Marine game. For a score prediction, quality-wise, Spurs probably do get through this one. They the end, although I would love to see Wycombe produce a bit of an upset. But I am going to go 2-0 Spurs. FIFA said it's going to be a goalless draw, then Spurs will win it on penalties. And then as our last game to preview, we got Bournemouth going up against Crawley. This game now taking place on Tuesday. It was originally scheduled to take place over the weekend, but has since been moved. Now, Crawley undoubtedly producing one of the major shocks of the FA Cup third round, and if they can, breeze past Leeds in the way they did, who's to say they can't do the same for Bournemouth? It would be quite the story if they do get themselves into the fifth round. Now, Bournemouth themselves aren't exactly on the greatest run of form at the moment. At one point of the season, it looked like they were an absolute shoo-in for the top two, but since have fallen off a little bit. Really disappointing stuff for them in midweek, especially, it was Danjuma returning and nothing was quite clicking for them moving forward. Has the 3-4-3 system sort of run its course lately? Is there a need to try out something new? I mean, now's a better time than ever, really. The FA Cup fifth round against, no disrespect to Crawley, but lower league opposition. Experiment with the team a little bit, try out a new system. They got the job done in the third round, Bournemouth, and were very professional with it, but there seems to be a bit more disruption about them at the moment. I've not really predicted all too many upsets so far, so why not? Let's just say 2-1 Crawley in this game, just for the crack of it. FIFA's gone 1-0 Bournemouth. But guys, there we have it. There are all my score predictions for this weekend's action. So like I say, we've got all the FA Cup action and the Championship games, which are going on as well. So a lot of football coming up this weekend. Should be a good one. Get all your score predictions in the comments down below. And as always, if you did go in to enjoy it, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Please do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.